I'm Ethan Mitchell, 34, a software engineer who built my life around stability and planning. My sister Jessica? Complete opposite. She sold her nearly paid-off house to experience the world, with her husband and kids. No backup plan. Then their adventure crashed, and suddenly my parents decided my spare bedroom was the perfect landing pad for her broke family. They never saw coming what I did next. Before I tell you how I stood my ground against my entire family, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and subscribe to see more stories about drawing boundaries with entitled relatives. I've always been the practical one in our family. While other kids dreamed of becoming astronauts or movie stars, I mapped out realistic goals. By 34, I'd achieved what I'd worked for, a senior software engineering position at a respected tech company in Seattle, a comfortable condo in a good neighborhood, and financial security that let me sleep soundly at night. No extravagant luxuries, just carefully planned stability. Jessica, 2 years my senior, embodied the free spirit I never was. Growing up, she painted our shared bedroom walls without permission, snuck out to concerts on school nights, and charmed her way out of consequences with a smile that melted our parents' resolve. Benjamin and Martha Mitchell adored their firstborn's spontaneity and passion. Jessica lives life to its fullest, Dad would say whenever I questioned her choices. Mom would add, not everyone needs to plan everything, Ethan. Sometimes the best experiences are unplanned. Those words became our family mantra. When Jessica crashed Dad's car at 17, they forgave her instantly. When she dropped out of college to travel across Europe, they called it finding herself. When she returned broke 6 months later, they welcomed her home and paid for her to restart school. Meanwhile, I worked summer jobs to save for college, graduated with honors, and secured internships that built my career. My achievements earned approving nods but never the enthusiastic celebrations that Jessica's smallest victories received. I learned to find validation in my own success, not my parents' reactions. Jessica met Graham Parker at 25 during a marketing conference. He matched her energy and wanderlust, with wild stories of backpacking through South America and living on beaches in Thailand. Within a year, they married in an elaborate ceremony our parents helped finance despite their modest incomes. To everyone's surprise, Jessica and Graham settled into seemingly conventional lives in Portland. They purchased a charming craftsman home, and Jessica secured a position at a marketing firm while Graham worked as a freelance graphic designer. Their children arrived. Lucas, a curious, bookish boy, followed 2 years later by Emma, who inherited her mother's artistic flair and outgoing personality. I visited them regularly, genuinely happy to see Jessica apparently thriving in stability. Her home gleamed with tasteful decor and family photos. The mortgage would be paid off in just 5 more years, an achievement I respected tremendously. Lucas and Emma attended good schools, participated in extracurricular activities, and seemed well adjusted. You've built something wonderful here, Jess, I told her during a weekend visit 3 years ago. We sat on her back deck, watching Graham teach the kids badminton in the spacious yard. Sometimes I get restless, she admitted, sipping her wine. But yes, it's a good life. You should be proud, I said. Financial security isn't exciting, but it gives you freedom. Once your mortgage is paid off, think of all the possibilities. She smiled distantly, watching her family with an expression I couldn't quite read. Freedom comes in many forms, little brother. I interpreted her words as growing wisdom, that she'd finally recognized the value of building a foundation before chasing dreams. I flew back to Seattle feeling genuinely optimistic about Jessica's future. For once, our paths seemed aligned in valuing security and planning. Each Christmas, our parents visited Portland to spend the holidays with Jessica's family, and I would join them. The family gatherings felt warm and traditional. We'd exchange thoughtful gifts, enjoy elaborate meals, and play board games with the kids. During these moments, I believed Jessica had finally found her place, a responsible parent and homeowner who had channeled her creative energy into a fulfilling life. Lucas, at 7, showed remarkable intelligence, devouring books and asking probing questions about how things worked. Emma, at 5, covered every surface with artwork and charmed everyone she met. They were thriving, loved, and secure, everything children should be. "You're doing a great job with them," I told Jessica and Graham one evening after the kids went to bed. "We're trying," Graham said, his arm around Jessica. "Sometimes I think they need more adventure in their lives, though. American kids are too sheltered." Jessica nodded enthusiastically. "We don't want them growing up thinking the whole world looks like Portland." I thought they meant summer vacations or spring break trips, normal family adventures within a stable framework. How wrong I was. Looking back, I should have recognized the restlessness brewing beneath Jessica's seeming contentment. The subtle signs were there, the travel magazines accumulating on their coffee table, the world map in Lucas's bedroom with colorful pins marking places they talked about visiting, Graham's increasing complaints about soul-crushing client demands. But I didn't see it coming. None of us did. At least, not the scale of what they were planning. Not the decision that would eventually land their broke, desperate family on my doorstep, appending my carefully constructed life and forcing me to make the hardest decision of my life. The announcement came during a Sunday family dinner at Jessica and Graham's home last spring. Our parents had flown in for the weekend, ostensibly to celebrate Dad's retirement, though Jessica had hinted at big news when inviting us. I assumed a job promotion or perhaps plans for a home renovation. Conventional good news from my now conventional sister. The dining room glowed with candlelight as Jessica tapped her glass for our attention. Lucas and Emma watched their mother with excited smiles, clearly already in on the secret. "We have something to share," Jessica began, reaching for Graham's hand. "We've made a decision that's going to change our lives." "You're pregnant again?" Mom guessed, clapping her hands together. Jessica laughed. "No, nothing like that. We're selling the house." Dad nodded approvingly. "Upgrading to something bigger? The market's good for sellers right now." "Not exactly," Graham interjected, his eyes bright with enthusiasm. "We're selling everything and traveling the world for a year, maybe longer." An uncomfortable silence fell over the table before my father spoke. "The whole family? What about the kids' school?" "That's the beauty of it," Jessica explained, practically bouncing in her seat. "We'll world school them. Think of the education they'll get experiencing different cultures firsthand instead of just reading about them in textbooks." Lucas piped up. "I'm going to keep a journal of everywhere we go and all the animals I see. And I'll draw everything," Emma added. My mind raced with practical questions. "What about your jobs? The mortgage? Health insurance? School records? Vaccinations for different countries?" Jessica waved dismissively. "We've thought about all that, Ethan. The house will sell for way more than we owe. That money will fund our travels. Graham can work remotely for his clients, and I can pick up marketing consultation gigs online. Kids are adaptable. They'll slot back into school when we return. If we return," Graham added with a wink, "we might find paradise and stay there." I looked to my parents, expecting them to voice the concerns racing through my mind. Instead, Mom was wiping away tears of joy, and Dad was nodding with admiration. "That's incredible," Mom said. "What courage to break free from the ordinary. I always wanted to do something like that," Dad added wistfully. "Good for you both." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "But you're throwing away everything you've built. The house will be gone. Your retirement savings. The kids' stability." Jessica's expression hardened slightly. "Not everyone wants the safe, predictable life you've chosen, Ethan. There's a whole world out there. We can always rebuild when we return, with memories and experiences money can't buy. I'm just concerned about the practical aspects." I tried again. "What's your backup plan if something goes wrong?" Graham laughed. "The backup plan is there is no backup plan. That's the point. Real adventure means embracing uncertainty." The conversation moved on to their planned itinerary: Thailand, Bali, New Zealand, then wherever inspiration led them. My concerns were dismissed as negativity, my questions as evidence I just didn't get it. By dessert, I stopped asking and simply listened, a knot forming in my stomach. Within 2 months, their house sold for significantly above asking price in Portland's hot market. Jessica's social media transformed into a documentation of their preparations, selling furniture, packing specialized travel gear, obtaining passports for the kids, and posing proudly in front of their empty house on closing day. Freedom achieved! Read the caption beneath a photo of them holding a sold sign, the children sitting atop their backpacks. Their adventure began with a flurry of enviable posts from Thailand. Jessica and Graham drinking coconuts on pristine beaches. Lucas and Emma riding elephants at a sanctuary. The family exploring ornate temples and night markets bursting with exotic foods and crafts. Everything filtered to perfection, everyone smiling. Living our best life, Jessica wrote beneath each perfect image. But 3 months in, I received a text from Jessica asking for my PayPal address. Just need a small temporary loan, she explained when I called to ask why. Graham's having trouble getting paid by some clients with the time difference and banking issues. Just $2,000 to tide us over until that resolves. We'll pay you back next month. I sent them money immediately, concerned but not alarmed. International banking could be complicated. But something in Jessica's voice had sounded tense beneath her casual explanation. The repayment date came and went without mention. When I gently inquired, Jessica sent a lengthy message about their amazing experiences in Bali, with a brief postscript. About the money, things are still tight. Graham's laptop is acting up, which makes client work harder. Can I get you back when we're in New Zealand? The exchange rate will be better there anyway. I agreed, suppressing my growing unease. Their social media posts continued, but I began noticing subtle changes. Fewer restaurant meals, more mentions of street food and free activities. Their accommodations shifted from boutique hotels to authentic homestays and hostels. Then came the call about my parents' anniversary. For 35 years, our family had never missed celebrating together, even if just by video call. This year would be their 40th, a milestone Mom and Dad had talked about celebrating for years. We can't make it back, Jessica told me, her voice crackling over a poor connection. The tickets from Fiji are non-refundable, and changing them would cost thousands we don't have right now. Can't you just video call in? It would mean the world to them. The time difference is brutal, and the internet at our hostel is spotty. Just tell them we send our love, okay? And maybe don't mention where we're staying. I told Mom we were at a resort. That night, I looked more critically at their recent social posts. Jessica's typically meticulous appearance had grown more casual, her highlighted hair now showing dark roots, her designer sundresses replaced by simple tank tops. The kids still smiled in photos, but Lucas's glasses were held together with tape in one image, hastily blurred in later posts. Something was wrong. My sister wasn't being honest about their situation, and our parents either didn't notice or chose not to see it. The first major crack had appeared in Jessica's perfect adventure narrative, and I couldn't shake the feeling that it was just the beginning of a much larger collapse. 6 months into their journey, the facade began crumbling faster than Jessica could maintain it. Her once daily social media updates dwindled to weekly posts, carefully curated to show only the most positive moments. Gone were the luxury accommodations and elaborate meals, replaced by generic beach photos and close-up shots of local flora that revealed nothing about their living conditions. I tracked their journey through these digital breadcrumbs: Vietnam, Cambodia, then a sudden jump to Malaysia that wasn't in their original itinerary. When I asked about the change in plans, Jessica mentioned something vague about following opportunities and living in the moment. The truth emerged during a late-night call that woke me at 2 a.m. Jessica's voice came through my phone broken by sobs. Everything's gone wrong, Ethan, she admitted after I groggily answered. Graham's laptop was stolen from our hostel room while we were at the beach. All his work files, all our photos, everything. He can't complete the projects he has, can't send portfolios to get new work. That's terrible, I said, sitting up in bed, fully awake now. Did you file a police report? Does your travel insurance cover it? A pause. We don't have travel insurance. Graham said it was a waste of money. The admission hung between us for several seconds. How bad is your situation, Jess? Really? Another long pause. We've been moving to cheaper countries than planned. The money's going faster than we expected. Grams had trouble getting consistent work even before the laptop issue. The kids they're okay, but Lucas needs new glasses, and Emma had a tooth infection last month that ate through our emergency fund. I pinched the bridge of my nose, fighting back the "I told you so" that threatened to escape. How much do you need for a new laptop so Graham can work? $2,000 for a decent one with the software he needs. Ethan, I hate asking again. I swear we'll pay you back as soon as. I'll wire it tomorrow. I interrupted. But Jessica, maybe it's time to reconsider the plan. Come home, regroup. We can't. She cut in firmly. We sold the house, remember? There's nothing to go back to. We just need to push through this rough patch. Graham has some promising leads in Indonesia. After sending the money, I called our parents to gauge how much they knew. Mom answered with her usual cheerfulness, but as our conversation progressed, I detected an undercurrent of concern. Have you sent Jessica any money recently? I asked carefully. A telling pause. Just a little to help with the children's needs. Your father and I want them to have the full experience without worrying about budgets for educational activities. How much is a little, Mom? She hesitated. Nothing we can't handle. Your father and I are fine. Later that week, I received a call from their financial advisor, Roger, who'd been managing my parents' retirement funds since I was in college. He'd always had a good relationship with me and knew I helped my parents with financial decisions. Ethan, I'm concerned about the withdrawals your parents have been making. I know it's not my place, but these aren't sustainable given their retirement timeline. My stomach dropped. How much have they withdrawn? Nearly $40,000 in the past 4 months. When I expressed concern, your father said it was for a family emergency and not to worry. The revelation sent me into a tailspin. My parents were depleting their retirement savings to fund Jessica's failing world tour, and they were hiding it from me. Meanwhile, I was picking up extra consulting projects on weekends to cover my own contributions to Jessica's adventure, putting strain on my relationship with my girlfriend Melissa. Your family dynamics are unhealthy, Melissa told me one night after I canceled our weekend plans to complete a rushed project. You're enabling Jessica's irresponsibility, and your parents are mortgaging their future to maintain her fantasy. Their family, I defended weakly. What am I supposed to do? Let the kids suffer? The kids are suffering because of their parents' choices, not yours, she countered. You're treating the symptoms while the disease gets worse. Her words stung because they contained truth I wasn't ready to face. I threw myself into work, avoiding deeper reflection on the situation. Meanwhile, Jessica's communications grew more desperate. The laptop hadn't solved their problems. Graham couldn't reconnect with former clients who'd moved on during his absence. The promising leads in Indonesia had fallen through. They'd moved to even cheaper accommodations in less touristy areas. The hostel has cockroaches, Jessica admitted during one call, her voice barely a whisper to avoid the children overhearing. Emma cries every night. Lucas is falling behind in his studies because the internet is too unreliable for his online lessons. Come home, I urged again. We're trying to save enough for flights, but basic survival keeps eating into that fund, she admitted. I spoke with my parents again, this time more directly about their financial support of Jessica. Dad grew defensive. She's going through a temporary rough patch. The experience is still valuable for the kids. Dad, they're living with cockroaches. Lucas is falling behind educationally. This isn't enriching anymore. Every adventure has challenges, Mom interjected. They'll be stronger for overcoming them. I realized they were as deep in denial as Jessica. The narrative of the brave, adventurous daughter pursuing an enviable lifestyle had become too central to their identity to abandon, despite mounting evidence of disaster. Work became my refuge and my prison. I excelled professionally while my personal life deteriorated. Melissa and I fought more frequently. My health suffered from stress and lack of sleep. Each notification from my phone triggered anxiety. Would it be Jessica with another crisis, my parents with another rationalization, or my bank with another overdraft alert? Then came the email from Lucas, sent from Jessica's account but clearly written by my 10-year-old nephew. Uncle Ethan, I don't like it here anymore. Mom cries when she thinks we're sleeping. Dad yells a lot. Emma wet the bed twice because she's scared of the bugs. I lost my learning notebook when we had to leave fast from the last place. Can we come stay with you? Mom says we can't go to Grandma and Grandpa's because they're too old for kids. Please don't tell Mom I wrote this. That email broke something in me. The children were suffering while the adults in their lives, including me, maintained a collective delusion. Something had to change, and it became increasingly clear that I would need to be the catalyst. I just didn't know yet how completely this situation would force me to redefine my relationship with my entire family. The breaking point arrived at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday with a call that jolted me from deep sleep. Jessica's voice came through, barely comprehensible through her sobs. They're keeping our passports, Ethan. The hotel won't let us leave until we pay, and we don't have it. The embassy says they can help, but we need to get there first, and we can't even leave the building. My mind struggled to catch up. Slow down. Where are you? Morocco. We came because Graham heard about a job opportunity with an expat starting a business. It fell through, and now we're stuck. How much do you owe? The figure she named made my blood run cold, nearly all that remained in my emergency savings. But the alternative was my sister and her children detained in a foreign country. I'll wire it. Send me the details, I said, already opening my laptop. The embassy officials said we should return to the States, Jessica admitted, her voice small. We've run out of options, Ethan. After arranging the transfer and speaking with an embassy representative to confirm the situation, I called my parents. Despite the hour, they answered immediately, suggesting they'd already heard from Jessica. We need to bring them home, I said firmly. Of course, Dad agreed. Your mother and I have been discussing it. We can convert my office into a bedroom for the children temporarily. Temporarily? I questioned. Dad, they have no home, no jobs, no savings. This isn't a short-term situation. Well, Mom interjected hesitantly. Our house is really too small for 2 extra adults and 2 children. And your father's health, the doctor said to avoid stress. A sinking feeling settled in my stomach. What are you suggesting? You have that spare bedroom, Mom continued. And the pull-out sofa in your office. Your condo is in a good school district. Just until they get back on their feet. You want them to live with me? I clarified, stunned by the suggestion. All 4 of them in my 2-bedroom condo? You're single, Ethan, Dad pointed out, conveniently forgetting about Melissa. Jessica needs family support right now. It just makes logical sense. Logical sense, I repeated numbly, recognizing the manipulation in using my own value system against me. 3 days later, we gathered at my parents' house for a family meeting before Jessica's family arrived from the airport. I'd spent those days in a fog of disbelief, alternating between anger and resignation. Melissa had been uncharacteristically quiet when I explained the situation, simply saying, You need to decide what kind of relationship you want with your family going forward. In my parents' living room, the tension was palpable. We need to establish some boundaries and expectations, I began. Boundaries? Mom looked offended. Ethan, they're in crisis. This isn't the time to be selfish. Setting expectations isn't selfish, I countered. Jessica and Graham need a recovery plan, not just a crash pad. They need compassion and support, Dad insisted. They can figure out the details once they've had time to recover from their ordeal. That approach is how we got here, I pointed out. Endless support without accountability. Mom's expression hardened. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? By turning your back on your sister when she needs you most? The familiar guilt tactic hit its mark. I'm not turning my back on her. I just want. This is what family does, Ethan. Dad interrupted firmly. We show up for each other without conditions. The conversation continued in circles until we heard the taxi in the driveway. Any chance of establishing ground rules evaporated as my parents rushed to greet their returning prodigals. Jessica looked nothing like her social media persona. Her once lustrous hair hung limp around a face marked by stress and insufficient nutrition. Lucas and Emma clung to her sides, their eyes wide and wary in two thin faces. And Graham. Graham stood slightly apart, his posture defensive, eyes challenging anyone to comment on their state. We're so sorry, Jessica whispered when I approached, the children still clinging to her. We never meant for this to happen. Something in her genuine remorse softened my resolve. We'll figure it out, I assured her, receiving a crushing hug in return. Graham merely nodded in my direction, not meeting my eyes or offering any acknowledgement of the rescue operation I'd funded or the accommodation I was apparently providing. The transition to my condo happened with minimal discussion. What was intended as a 2-week emergency arrangement stretched into a month with no progress toward independence. Jessica half-heartedly searched for jobs online but attended few interviews. Graham spent hours on my computer, rebuilding his portfolio, but produced little actual work. The children, while sweet, filled every corner of my once peaceful home with noise and possessions. My relationship with Melissa deteriorated further. You can't even invite me over anymore, she pointed out during a tense dinner at her apartment. Your life has been completely hijacked. She was right. I no longer had privacy, personal space, or financial breathing room. My utilities had doubled, my grocery bill tripled. Sleep became a luxury with 4 extra people in a space designed for 1 or 2. The breaking point came when I discovered my record collection disturbed. A collector since college, I'd carefully curated rare vinyl albums that represented both sentimental and monetary value. Several key pieces were missing. I found Graham at a coffee shop near our building, supposedly job hunting but actually watching sports highlights on his phone. Where are my records? I demanded without preamble. His momentary expression of guilt confirmed my suspicions before he composed himself. What records? The limited pressing Arcade Fire album. The signed Radiohead. The first edition Velvet Underground. They're all missing. Graham shrugged. I needed startup capital for a business opportunity. A guy I know collects that stuff. They were just gathering dust anyway. You stole from me, I stated flatly, my voice deadly calm despite the rage building inside me. You stole from me while living under my roof. It's not stealing when it's family, he countered. Besides, when this business idea takes off, I'll buy you replacements. Better ones. I walked away before I said something unforgivable. Back at the condo, I confronted Jessica with the discovery. He was trying to help, she defended immediately. We can't keep living off your charity forever. He's trying to build something. By stealing my possessions? Jessica, wake up! He's not building anything. He's making excuses and taking advantage of everyone around him, especially you. You've always been jealous of our relationship, she accused, tears forming. You can't stand that we dared to live differently than your safe, boring life. My parents arrived during this argument, summoned by Jessica's distressed call. They surveyed the scene, Jessica crying, me standing firm, the children hiding in the spare bedroom, and immediately took their expected sides. Ethan, how could you upset her like this? Mom demanded. After everything they've been through. He sold my property without permission, I explained through gritted teeth. That's theft. I'm sure he meant well, Dad soothed. Let's not blow this out of proportion. In that moment, watching my family once again rally around Jessica and Graham despite their inexcusable behavior, something crystallized within me. The pattern would never change unless I changed it. My family had established a dynamic where Jessica's feelings and needs would always outweigh mine, where my boundaries would always be seen as selfishness, where my sacrifices would never be enough. I looked at them, my enabling parents, my entitled sister, my manipulative brother-in-law, and the innocent children caught in the middle, and made a decision that would forever alter our family dynamic. Everyone needs to find alternative arrangements, I said quietly. I'm done. The silence following my declaration felt apocalyptic. 4 adult faces stared at me with expressions ranging from shock to outrage. You can't be serious, Mom finally whispered. You'd put your own sister and her children on the street? I didn't say that, I clarified, maintaining my composure despite my thundering heart. I said the current arrangement is over. There will be a new arrangement, one with structure, accountability, and an exit plan. We don't need your charity with strings attached, Graham sneered. Then you're welcome to refuse it, I replied evenly. But you will not continue living here under the current conditions. I left the condo to clear my head, ignoring the calls and texts that immediately bombarded my phone. I walked for hours, eventually finding myself at Thomas's office. Thomas, my college roommate turned successful real estate agent, listened without judgment as I unloaded the entire situation. You're doing the right thing, he assured me. Enabling them isn't helping anyone. I feel like I'm abandoning them, I admitted. There's a difference between abandonment and establishing healthy boundaries, Thomas pointed out. You're still offering help, just help that leads to independence rather than dependence. Our conversation sparked an idea that grew into a plan. Over the next week, I met with a financial advisor, researched affordable housing options, and connected with professional contacts who might offer employment opportunities for both Jessica and Graham. I avoided my condo as much as possible, staying with Melissa while I developed what I came to call the independence plan. When I finally returned home, I arrived with purpose and preparation. I called a family meeting, including my parents. I've made some decisions, I began, setting a folder on the coffee table. This situation isn't working for anyone. Jessica and Graham need to rebuild their lives, not just exist in suspended animation in my spare bedroom. Before the protests could begin, I raised my hand. I'm still offering help, but help designed to create independence, not dependency. I outlined my proposal: 3 months of subsidized rent in a modest but clean 2-bedroom apartment in a decent neighborhood. I'd cover the security deposit and first month entirely, then decrease my contribution by 25% each month, requiring them to increase their contribution accordingly. I've spoken with Maria Lopez at Westside Marketing. I continued addressing Jessica. She has an entry-level position available. It's below your previous experience level, but it includes benefits and has advancement potential. Turning to Graham, and I've arranged interviews with 3 companies looking for graphic design work. Thomas's real estate office also needs marketing materials created. It would be contract work to start, but could lead to ongoing arrangements. I pushed a folder toward them containing apartment details, job information, school enrollment paperwork for the kids, and a structured budget plan. The children can enroll in Lakewood Elementary. It's a good school with resources for kids who need to catch up academically. I've already spoken with the counselor about their situation. Jessica stared at the materials, her expression unreadable. Graham looked both offended and interested, clearly torn between pride and practicality. And if we refuse this controlled charity? Graham asked. Then you'll need to find alternative arrangements within 2 weeks, I said calmly. My home is no longer an option under the current circumstances. You're throwing them out, Dad accused. I'm offering them a bridge to independence, I corrected. Something we should have done from the beginning instead of endless bailouts. How dare you lecture us about family support? Mom began, but Jessica interrupted her. He's right, she said quietly. Everyone turned to her in surprise. This isn't sustainable. We can't live in Ethan's spare room forever. The kids need stability. We need to rebuild. Graham started to protest, But Jessica silenced him with a look I hadn't seen from her in years, one of determination and clarity. "We accept your offer, Ethan," she said firmly. "All of it." My parents looked stunned. "Jessica, you don't have to settle for this. Your father and I can help more directly." "No, Mom," Jessica replied. "You and Dad have done enough. Too much, actually. It's time we stood on our own feet again." Graham stormed out, but not before I caught the conflicted look on his face. He wasn't entirely opposed to the plan, just to accepting it so publicly. Over the next 2 weeks, I helped Jessica and the children prepare for the move. Graham participated minimally, still nursing his wounded pride. My parents remained cool toward me, clearly feeling I had somehow coerced Jessica into accepting what they viewed as harsh terms. The truth emerged during a conversation with my father when he came alone to the condo, ostensibly to help pack but really to express his disappointment. "We could have supported them longer," he insisted. "Given them time to recover emotionally before pushing them like this." "Dad, how much have you and Mom sent them since this started?" I asked directly. He shifted uncomfortably. "That's not relevant. It is if you've been draining your retirement savings," I pressed. "Roger called me, Dad. He's concerned." Dad's expression fell. "Your mother doesn't know the full amount. We've had to adjust some of our plans." "Like selling the lake house?" I guessed, referring to the small vacation property they purchased for their retirement years. His silence confirmed it. "This has to stop," I said gently. "Not just for my sake or Jessica's, but for yours and Mom's. Jessica and Graham need to learn self-sufficiency, and you and Mom need security in your retirement years." Something in my words seemed to reach him. He looked suddenly older, more vulnerable. "We just wanted to give her everything," he admitted. "Maybe we gave too much." The day of the move arrived with mixed emotions. The apartment wasn't luxurious but offered clean, safe housing in a neighborhood with parks and good schools. I'd furnished it with basics, some new, some gently used items I'd sourced through friends and online marketplaces. Jessica seemed genuinely grateful as she surveyed the space. "It's a fresh start," she said, surprising me with a hug. "Thank you for not giving up on us." Graham remained aloof but noticeably surveyed the office nook I'd set up with approval. The children explored excitedly, relieved to have their own room after months of displacement. "The bridge to independence starts here," I told Jessica. "I believe you can cross it." That evening, alone in my condo for the first time in months, I felt both relief and uncertainty. Had I done the right thing? Would this intervention succeed where years of enabling had failed? Only time would tell. Melissa came over, bringing dinner and a supportive presence. "I'm proud of you," she said simply. "That couldn't have been easy." "It wasn't," I admitted. "But it was necessary." The first weeks brought expected challenges. Jessica struggled to adjust to her entry-level position after years of higher responsibility. Graham missed 2 interviews before finally attending one that resulted in contract work. My parents continued sending money secretly until I arranged a family financial counseling session that exposed the extent of their support and its impact on their retirement security. "We thought we were helping," Mom said tearfully during the session. "We never realized we were making it harder for them to stand on their own." Gradually, incremental progress emerged. Jessica received positive feedback at work. Graham completed several design projects successfully, though his attitude remained ambivalent. The children's school reports showed academic improvement. Most surprisingly, Jessica began making small but regular repayments toward what she'd borrowed from me, often accompanied by heartfelt notes of gratitude. "Your method was harsh," my father admitted during a private lunch 6 weeks after the move. "But I'm beginning to think it was necessary." "Not harsh," I corrected. "Just clear and consistent. Sometimes that's what love looks like." The true test came when Graham announced he'd been offered an opportunity to join a friend's travel business venture in Costa Rica. "It's guaranteed income," he insisted to Jessica during a family dinner at my parents' home. "We could get back to our original plan." I held my breath, waiting for Jessica's response, wondering if all the progress would unravel in an instant. Jessica looked at her children, then at Graham, then finally at me. Something in her expression had fundamentally changed. "No," she said firmly. "We're not doing that again. Not without proper planning, savings, and stability for the kids. I'm done running from responsibility." In that moment, I knew that regardless of what happened next, something essential had shifted. Jessica had found her own voice of reason, and for the first time in her adult life, she was choosing security over impulse, not because someone else insisted, but because she genuinely valued it. Graham stormed out, and the old family pattern would have been to chase after him, to soothe his wounded pride. Instead, Jessica simply turned to help Emma with her dessert, a quiet dignity in her demeanor that I'd never seen before. The road ahead would still have challenges, but in that moment, I knew my decision, painful as it had been, was the right one. Sometimes the kindest thing we can do for those we love is to stop protecting them from the consequences of their choices. The transition was far from smooth. Moving Jessica's family into their new apartment revealed just how accustomed they'd become to dependence. Simple tasks like budgeting for groceries, scheduling bill payments, and managing the children's school responsibilities seemed to overwhelm Jessica initially. "I don't understand why the electric bill is so high," she complained during my visit 2 weeks after they moved in. "We barely use anything." I patiently walked her through energy-saving practices and basic budget management, skills she never fully developed despite being in her mid-30s. Years of parental bailouts followed by Graham's financial control had left her with significant knowledge gaps. Graham's adjustment proved even more challenging. He approached the apartment as a temporary inconvenience rather than a new beginning, doing minimal upkeep and contributing little to daily household management. "This place is beneath us," he muttered while I helped Jessica assemble inexpensive bookshelves for the children's room. "We had a custom craftsman home, and now we're living like college students. We sold that home," Jessica reminded him with unexpected firmness. "This is where we are now." His resistance manifested in passive-aggressive behaviors, leaving for networking events that stretched late into evenings, complaining about the contract work I'd helped secure, and making minimal effort in job interviews for more stable positions. "He says corporate jobs will kill his creativity," Jessica explained after Graham rejected a promising opportunity with a local marketing firm. "He wants to build his own business." "With what startup capital?" I asked gently. "Building something takes resources." She had no answer, but I could see the questions forming in her mind. Meanwhile, the children were showing remarkable resilience. Lucas thrived in his new school, quickly making up academic ground lost during their travels. His teacher noted his exceptional critical thinking skills and intellectual curiosity. Emma struggled more with the transition but found joy in the school's art program and made friends in the apartment complex. "Uncle Ethan, watch this!" became a common greeting when I visited, as they eagerly shared new achievements and discoveries. Their improving health and growing confidence reinforced my conviction that structure and stability were exactly what they needed. My relationship with my parents remained strained but was slowly healing. The financial counseling sessions had been a wake-up call, forcing them to confront the unsustainable nature of their support for Jessica. "We've put the lake house back on the market," Dad informed me during a tentative lunch meeting. "Roger says we need to replenish our retirement accounts." "That's a wise decision," I said, careful not to sound judgmental. "Future security matters. We were enabling her, weren't we?" Mom asked quietly, her eyes revealing the painful realization. "All these years, thinking we were being supportive parents. You were doing what you thought was best," I offered. "We all were." The true breakthrough came unexpectedly, about 3 months into the new arrangement. I'd stopped by the apartment to drop off some job listings for Graham and found Jessica alone, sitting at the small kitchen table with spreadsheets and notebooks surrounding her. "Budget planning," she explained, looking embarrassed. "I realized I never really learned how to do this properly." We spent the evening reviewing her calculations, setting realistic goals, and creating a 5-year plan that included emergency savings, education funds for the children, and eventually, a modest home purchase. "I never thanked you properly," she said as I was leaving. "Not just for the financial help, but for believing I could do better when everyone else just kept rescuing me. Including yourself," I pointed out gently. She nodded, a new self-awareness in her expression. "Especially myself." 2 days later, Jessica called with news that she'd received positive feedback at work and was being considered for a project lead position. Her voice contained genuine pride, not in being rescued, but in her own accomplishment. Graham's journey proved more complicated. The breaking point came when he announced yet another can't-miss opportunity that required investment capital. "It's a sure thing," he insisted during a tense dinner at their apartment. "We just need about $5,000 to get started." "We don't have $5,000, Jessica stated firmly. "And we're not borrowing it. Your brother could." "No," she interrupted. "We're not asking Ethan for more money. That's not the plan we agreed to." "So we're just supposed to give up on our dreams and live this mediocre existence forever?" Graham demanded. "Become boring suburbanites like your brother?" Jessica's response surprised us both. "There's nothing mediocre about financial security and creating a stable home for our children. If that's not enough for you, maybe you need to rethink your priorities." The argument escalated after I left, according to Jessica's tearful phone call later that night. Graham had packed a bag and gone to stay with a friend, claiming Jessica wasn't the woman he married anymore. "Maybe I'm not," she admitted. "Maybe that's a good thing." The following weeks brought painful but necessary changes. Jessica and Graham agreed to a trial separation. He moved into a friend's spare room while maintaining regular visits with the children. Jessica continued progressing at work, eventually securing the project lead position and its accompanying raise. My parents struggled to accept the separation, still clinging to the narrative of Jessica and Graham as free-spirited adventurers temporarily derailed. "They just need time to reconnect," Mom insisted during a family dinner that Graham had declined to attend. "Every marriage has rough patches. This isn't about their marriage," I pointed out. "It's about fundamentally different values and priorities." Jessica nodded. "Graham still wants the life we tried to have traveling. I've realized I want security for myself and the children. Neither is wrong, but they might not be compatible." The most meaningful conversation came unexpectedly, when Jessica asked me to help Lucas with a science project. While the children worked in their room, she confided her deepest fears. "What if I can't do this on my own?" she whispered. "What if I fail them again?" "You're not on your own," I assured her. "You have support, not enablers, but actual support. And you're stronger than you realize." "How do you know that?" "Because I've watched you rebuild from nothing these past months. That takes extraordinary strength." Her eyes filled with tears. "I've been so awful to you over the years. Dismissive of your choices, judgmental of your caution. And in the end, you were the one who saved us." "You're saving yourself now," I corrected. "I just provided a bridge." That evening, watching Jessica help her children with homework at their small kitchen table, I realized that sometimes love requires the courage to let people face difficulties rather than shielding them from every hardship. My intervention hadn't been about punishment or vindication, it had been about creating space for Jessica to discover her own strength and capabilities. The path forward remained uncertain. Graham still struggled with the new reality, alternating between reluctant participation in family responsibilities and resentful distancing. My parents were gradually accepting the changed family dynamic but still occasionally slipped into enabling behaviors. And Jessica, while making remarkable progress, faced daily challenges in her journey toward complete independence. But for the first time, I felt genuine hope, not based on wishful thinking, but on tangible evidence of growth and change. The family system that had maintained unhealthy patterns for decades was finally evolving into something more balanced and sustainable. And in the process, we were all learning what true support actually looked like. 6 months after implementing the independence plan, We gathered for Thanksgiving at my parents' home. The atmosphere felt different, tentative yet hopeful, with new dynamics still finding their balance. Jessica arrived first with Lucas and Emma, both children eagerly showing my parents their recent school achievements. Jessica herself looked transformed, not just in her appearance, which had regained its former polish, but in her demeanor. She moved with a quiet confidence that came from earned accomplishment rather than impulsive bravado. "I got the promotion," she announced after dinner, once the children were occupied with a movie in the living room. "Full project manager with a team of 3 reporting to me." The pride in her voice was unmistakable, and entirely justified. In 6 months, she'd progressed from entry-level to management, impressing colleagues with her creativity tempered by newly developed organizational skills. "I've started a repayment plan for everything," she added, sliding an envelope toward me. Inside was a check, small relative to what I'd spent on their rescue and relocation, but symbolically significant. "It's not much yet, but I'm committed to paying back everyone I borrowed from." My parents exchanged glances. Their relationship with Jessica had evolved as well, moving gradually from enabling to genuinely supporting. Dad had stopped sending secret funds, instead offering practical assistance like picking up the children from school when Jessica worked late. Mom had channeled her nurturing instincts into teaching Jessica household management skills rather than simply handling problems for her. Graham arrived last, bringing store-bought pumpkin pies and an awkward energy. The separation had become more permanent, though no legal steps had been taken toward divorce. He'd found steady work as a graphic designer for a local advertising agency, a job that utilized his creative talents within a structured environment. The position had been a compromise for him, less exciting than his entrepreneurial dreams but providing stability and benefits. "The apartment building approved my rental application," he mentioned during dessert. "I'll be 3 blocks from Jessica's place. Close enough to see the kids easily, but you know." I did know. The distance was necessary, not just physically but emotionally. Graham was on his own journey of growth, one that required separation from the enabling dynamic that had previously defined their relationship. After dinner, while helping with dishes, Jessica pulled me aside. "I need to thank you properly," she said, her voice steady. "Not just for the financial help, but for believing I could do better when everyone else, including me, thought rescue was the only option. You did the hard work," I reminded her. "But you provided the framework. You saw what I needed when I couldn't see it myself." She hesitated. "I resented you for so long for your stability, your planning. I thought you were missing out on life, but really, you were building a foundation that gave you freedom. I'm finally understanding that." Later that evening, my parents approached me on the back porch where I'd stepped out for some quiet reflection. "We owe you an apology," Dad began, uncharacteristic emotion in his voice. "We accused you of being heartless when you were actually showing the most genuine love. We enabled her for so long," Mom added. "Confused supporting with rescuing. It took us too long to see what you saw immediately. I didn't do it perfectly," I admitted. "There were probably gentler ways to handle it. Sometimes a clean break is necessary," Dad said. "Our financial advisor says we've stabilized our retirement accounts, by the way. No more secret withdrawals." The conversation represented a profound shift in our family's understanding of support and responsibility. For the first time, we were acknowledging the damage done by well-intentioned enabling and recognizing the tough love required for genuine growth. As the evening wound down, I found myself sitting with Lucas and Emma, helping them with a puzzle while the adults chatted in the kitchen. "Uncle Ethan," Lucas said without looking up from the puzzle piece in his hand, "Mom says you helped us learn to stand on our own feet." "Your mom is doing the hard work," I replied. Emma leaned against my arm. "But you gave us the apartment and helped Mom get a job. And now she smiles a lot more. Are you and Dad going to get back together?" Lucas asked suddenly, his young face serious. "That's something for your parents to figure out," I answered carefully. "But no matter what happens, they both love you very much, and they're both working hard to create stable, happy lives for you." I like stable, Emma declared. It's nice knowing where my toys are going to be tomorrow. Her simple wisdom struck me profoundly. Children naturally crave the security that Jessica and Graham had sacrificed in pursuit of adventure. The stability that Jessica had once dismissed as boring was exactly what allowed her children to flourish. The months that followed brought continued progress. Jessica maintained her career advancement, eventually qualifying for a mortgage on a modest townhouse close to the children's school. Graham remained separate but became a more consistent presence in his children's lives, having found balance between creative fulfillment and responsibility. My parents truly embraced their new role as supportive rather than rescuing grandparents, offering childcare and emotional encouragement without undermining Jessica's authority or independence. My relationship with Melissa, strained nearly to breaking during the crisis, strengthened through the resolution. She had stood by me through the hardest decisions, offering perspective when I was too close to see clearly. You changed the story, she told me as we walked along the waterfront one evening. Your whole family was stuck in a pattern no one could break until you had the courage to disrupt it. A year after the fateful night when I demanded change, we gathered again for Thanksgiving, this time at Jessica's new townhouse. The modest dining room was crowded but warm, filled with the genuine laughter of people who had faced difficult truths together and emerged stronger. After dinner, Jessica stood and tapped her glass for attention. I want to say something, she began, her voice steady. A year ago, I was living in my brother's spare bedroom, broken after chasing an unrealistic dream at my family's expense. Today, I have a home again, smaller than before but truly mine. I have a career I'm proud of. Most importantly, my children have stability and security. She turned to me, eyes bright with emotion. None of this would have been possible without Ethan. Not just his financial help, but his courage to say what no one else would, that rescuing me was actually hurting me. That true support meant helping me stand on my own, not carrying me indefinitely. The room fell silent as she continued. I've repaid about 20% of what I owe him financially, but I can never repay what he taught me about responsibility, consequences, and real love. Sometimes the kindest thing someone can do is tell you a truth no one else will. Her words touched something deep within me. The journey had been painful for everyone involved, filled with difficult conversations and uncomfortable boundaries. But through that necessary discomfort, genuine growth had emerged. Later, as guests departed and the evening wound down, I found myself alone in Jessica's kitchen, helping with the last of the cleanup. Do you think you'll ever travel again? I asked her. Show the kids the world like you planned? She smiled, but it was different from her old impulsive grin, more measured, more mature. Someday, she said. But this time with savings, insurance, and a home to return to. Adventures are wonderful, but they're sweeter when you have a foundation to build them on. In that moment, I realized the most important lesson from our family's journey. Sometimes love requires the courage to stop rescuing someone so they can learn to save themselves. True support isn't about shielding people from all hardship but about providing the tools and boundaries they need to build resilience. And sometimes, the most generous gift we can offer those we love is the dignity of facing consequences and discovering their own strength in the process. Life isn't always about avoiding falls, sometimes it's about learning how to get back up on your own. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision that seemed harsh but was actually the kindest thing in the long run? Or have you been on the receiving end of tough love that ultimately changed your life? Drop a comment below sharing your experience. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more complex family stories about drawing healthy boundaries and finding the courage to stand firm when it matters most. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, sometimes the hardest conversations lead to the most meaningful growth.